The spirit of New York Jets football stretches from Long Island through the 5 boroughs into northern New Jersey, and its heart beats loudest in the Hackensack Meadowlands.
It's in your blood. When I see the Jets on the field, when I see that uniform on the field, it just elevates me. Hey, that's my team. I'm pumped up. There's just something about seeing that, that Jet uniform that's like, that's my team. That's my Jet team.
We love the Jets. I don't care how many games they lose or how many games they win. We're going to be here.
Life as a Jets fan is like life in the big city. There are high times, hard times, and everything in between.
If I think of myself as why am I a fan, good times or bad, it's my team. It's my team. So if they do well, I'm happy and I'm proud. If they do poorly, I'm there to support them. It's almost like your kid in a way. Your kid screws up and you still love the kid.
I start with the Jets the year that they won the Super Bowl with Joe Namath, just a staunch believer. And from that day forward, I was going to be a Jet fan for the rest of my life. Little did I know how hard a task it was going to be.
I think the best way to describe a Jets fan is being cautiously pessimistic. The Jets have a way of drawing you in that they're just good enough to make you start to think and start to dream and start to wonder. And this is every year.
Listen to this crowd. They are bananas.
There's always a moment when you really think that there's something special possible. And it always seems to happen that something is lurking around the corner.
The 10. He fumbles the football into the end zone. It's loose. And the Cowboys have recovered the Curtis Martin fumble in the end zone. Amazing as well, Marty, because Curtis Martin, if one thing, he never seems to fumble the football.
Jets fans not only have experienced some bad seasons, but they've experienced some good seasons that ended badly and ended in just warped, terrible fashion. I think that by going through that, it makes your fanship stronger.
The Jets had shocked the experts all season, and in the AFC Championship game, they were shocking them again.
Pressure on, and they block it.
Blake Spence, it might be Blake Spence, who came up the middle. And the Jets recover it inside the Denver 1-yard line. And now a chance for New York to really take advantage. The pitch to Martin running left. He's to the touchdown line. Across the line, touchdown. Touchdown, New York Jets, Curtis Martin.
Everybody, they're up 10-0, and we thought we had it in the bag. I'm like, this is the Jets. You thought the game was over because they're up 10-0, please, and how long did it take for that game to turn?
The clock strikes midnight for the New York Jets. The season is over.
But even that game probably wasn't as bad as when they played the Browns in an AFC divisional game after the 1986 season.
Freeman McNeil runs in for the touchdown with about 5 minutes to go. They're up 20-10.
Brian handing to McNeil. McNeil finds some room. McNeil still on his feet to the 20, 15, 10, 5, and...
And, I could hear Charlie Steiner saying, we're on our way to Denver.
The Jets are going to win this football game. The Jets are going to the AFC Championship.
The Jets have the Browns in a hole. Bernie Kosar goes back to pass, incomplete, and we're celebrating. This is going to happen, and all of a sudden...
Here's another penalty marker down. They might have Gastineau on a late hit.
It was a game they had. All they had to do was not take a stupid penalty and they win the game.
And you see the replay, and Mark Gastineau, about 10 minutes after the play was over, had buried Bernie Kosar.
Quarterback number 99 at 15. That's a first down.
So instead of 3rd and 17, it's 1st and 10, and every Jets fan knows what happened then.
Kosar, backpedaling, long ball, Webster Slaughter. He's got the ball. He's down to the 5-yard line. Kick on the way. It's up and good. And the Browns with 7 seconds to play rally back and tie the game, and we're going to go to overtime. Snap and set down, and the game is history. Cleveland wins it. 23-20 in a second overtime period. The second longest game in NFL history.
That was probably the most excruciating game, and the most excruciating season because what happens a couple of weeks later, but the Giants win the Super Bowl. So from start to finish, you couldn't have had a more miserable experience if you were a Jets fan.
Perhaps the best thing that can be said about the 1976 New York Jets season is that it's over. It was a year of grim disappointment for veteran and rookie alike. For many of the young players, this first taste of pro football was a bitter one.
The Jets are my cross to bear, my burden, but undying loyalty is something I think makes for better character of a man.
Jet fans basically are cut from a younger generation. Remember, before there were Jets, everybody was a Giants fan.
The Jets were kind of a product of the 60s, so really I guess it's kind of right that for me, I mean, they were, I guess, the one symbol of my rebellion against my father, because he was really a Giants fan.
The Jets crowd is eclectic. It comes from Long Island. It comes from, other suburbs. They're a little less buttoned up. You're less likely to see a coat and tie in a Jets crowd than you are in a Giants crowd.
I think they feel that there's a grittier, tougher mentality that goes with following their team. They thrive on that. They embrace it. Because who doesn't want to be considered an everyman man? Especially a football fan.
They're very honest fans. They're very knowledgeable. They know the game. If you go out and you give 110%, they're going to support you. If you start to lay down on them, it's going to be a long afternoon.
The Jets are a team that reflects the character of its fans. Proud and tough.
And the crowd goes wild.
In the corner in the stadium, there was an area of the stands that would rock up and down, and that whole corner of the stands would be moving. And it just fit our persona, it seemed, the people in Shea Stadium. It was like a blue-collar bunch of people, that rooted for us, and it was like, that's what we were. I based it on, we were just a bunch of lunch pail guys that were going to work that day, you know what I mean? And we used to go out and just kick butt.
After 11 seasons in New York, number 73 became just the third Jet to have his number retired, joining Joe Namath and Don Maynard.
Even now, Jet fans grow almost reverent when they talk about Klecko because you always see him playing hurt. He was a Pro Bowler with 3 different positions.
Wherever you put Klecko, he just flat out made plays. He was a guy who loved what he was doing every weekend while he was out there on the field.
He was one of those guys who was a down and dirty, great football player, and I mean a great football player who's been underappreciated in history, and was a guy who loved being a Jet. He loved everything about it. He didn't have to have the fame of a Gastineau. He was a normal guy who Jets fans learned to love because he was just like them.
There's one piece of film that I think all Jets fans will remember of him shredding his knee against the Patriots. You could just see the agony in his face. That picture is kind of a wonderful way to encapsulate what it's like to be a Jets fan in a lot of ways, the pain, the misery. There are certain players that when they play in any sport just love the game, and Joe Klecko was a guy you could tell that if he wasn't playing in front of 70,000 people in the Meadowlands would gladly have gone to Eisenhower Park and played touch football for 3 hours a day on a Saturday afternoon, and I think the Jets fans really appreciate that. It's easy being a Yankees fan. It's a little harder being a Red Sox fan. It's because you always find out if your heart's really into it. I think that's the reason why you see so much range of emotion among Jets fans, both the highest highs and the lowest lows. They tend to wear on their faces more than a lot of fans do.
Jets fans have got to stop crying. They won one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. It's not like they haven't won since 1914. What do you think? How did you like to be a Saints fan for all those years? How about a Cleveland Browns fan? I do not weep for Jets fans because they've probably been to the playoffs 10 to 12, 13 times. The playoffs are supposed to be a landmark of success for a team. So I can think of a lot of teams that should be moaning and whining a lot more than Jets fans should.
Yes, Jets fans have enjoyed their share of memorable moments, Not as many as some other teams, perhaps, but certainly just as sweet.
The best feeling I've had as a Jet fan was at the end of the 02 season, last game of the year they're playing the Packers, and I go into the stadium thinking that the season's over because New England is playing Miami. You need the Patriots to beat the Dolphins, otherwise Miami's going to win the division and the Jets are done no matter what happens in this game. And then 5 minutes later, finding out that the Patriots have somehow come back to win the game.
You can hear in the background what may have just happened in New England. It is bedlam here at the Meadowlands. The Jets are now playing for a division title.
Patriots! They won the game! Won the game! Beat Miami! Jets are going to the Super Bowl! Still got a chance, baby!
Bennington drops the throw, swings it right. The pass caught by Wayne Corbett at the 15. Cuts to his left to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown! Wayne Corbett, second touchdown of the day, has blown this game wide open for the Jets. A shocking AFC Eastern Division championship team in the New York Jets.
And walking out of that day after they beat up on Green Bay as winning the AFC East, I don't think I've ever felt better than I did that day.
The first feeling of exhilaration I had was the first year they went to the playoffs in my lifetime, and they were playing the Dolphins late in the season at Shea Stadium. And when I grew up, which was through the 70s, which was a lot of dark years, a lot of 3-11s, a lot of 8-8s, you always figured that something was going to go wrong down the stretch of an important game. Suddenly, here's Richard Todd throwing a touchdown pass with less than a minute to go in the game. They beat the Dolphins, and suddenly you could really actually think they might actually make the playoffs. I mean, I danced around the house that day. I was 13 or 14 years old. It doesn't happen as often as you'd like, but we'll always have that first time, I guess.
The Jets and their fans have been through a lot together. Indeed, the Jets belong to their fans, in whose image they were created and in whose hearts they live.
They bleed green, so they're, eternally optimistic, like I am. They're in it for the long term. They love their team and having this shared experience. And that's who we work for. And that's why we're doing the things we're doing, to put a product on the field and a team on the field that they can be proud of.
New York City's Canyon of Heroes has an echo all its own. The greatest athletes, the greatest moments, they all grace the New York stage. This is the town where legends are written, where history is made, and where games can be larger than life. But one chapter of New York's sports history has vanished without a trace. Across the Harlem River, on a place called Coogan's Bluff, a housing project now stands on what once was the Polo Grounds. This was home to the baseball giants, Yankees, and Mets. But there is no mention of the New York Titans, who played there from 1960 through 1962.
Somebody said, "You play with the Jets all your career?" And I said, "No, I played the first 30 years with the New York Titans."
We didn't laugh at them. The people laughed at them, the people that knew they were in town, and there weren't many.
I remember the empty stands, and I remember the guys wondering whether they were going to get their checks or not, and whether or not the checks would bounce or whether they'd be good the next day.
What the players would do at the Polo Grounds was they would, right after practice, they would skip showering and run down to Hanover Trust because it was basically first come, first served on payroll checks.
The man most responsible for the Titans' humble beginnings was its owner, Harry Wismer. A nationally known sportscaster, Wismer was a charter member of the Foolish Club, the original team owners in the fledgling American Football League.
Good evening, everyone. This is Harry Wismer inviting you to join me on the 50-yard line of the nation's professional gridiron as we review the...
Harry Wismer was legendary. He did a lot of radio, I think, in Detroit.
Football game.
One day, somebody was watching the game on television when he was doing it on radio, and it was an entirely different game.
Wismer dreamed of owning his own team and saw his opportunity in the country's biggest market. And he hired the biggest name he could find as his coach, Hall of Famer Sammy Baugh.
He was one of the all-time great quarterbacks who couldn't begin to explain to young quarterbacks how he did what he did. He was the coach because he was the best name Harry could find in the hopes of selling some tickets.
Unfortunately for the Titans, Wismer's vision was bigger than his bank account.
He really thought that when we hit New York City, we were going to have an average crowd of 40,000 to 50,000 people. And when that didn't happen, he was on such a short shoestring and a budget that he just couldn't function.
We had in Harry Wismer maybe the most eccentric owner in pro football history.
Going to Harry's apartment, and the bedroom was like the ticket office, so there'd be all these thousands of tickets spread out on beds and floors and everything, but that was the office.
How I let him talk me into going up there, I don't know to this day. The biggest mistake I ever made. Worst damn place I ever saw. We used to play there when I was at Washington. That's where the Giants played their game. But it had been run down and it was dirty, and we never worried about the people in the stands because we had them outnumbered and we damn felt safe all the time. We could go out there and whip everybody that's at the game.
Few sports organizations had as rocky a start as the New York Titans.
The crowd was so small that I was able to go up and shake hands with everyone that was there and congratulate them on coming to the game.
There were sometimes less than 500 people in the stands, and one writer put it nicely. He said that no one could figure out how the Titans came up with the figure 18,223 people in attendance. Perhaps 18,000 of those came disguised as empty seats.
I walked into the dressing room and I heard this clanging. I couldn't figure out what in the heck was going on. And I opened the door and one of the equipment managers was in there and he had a trash can. And he was beating on the side of this trash can. I asked him, what was he doing? He said he was running the rats out.
Things weren't much better when the Titans went on the road.
They would come out to play you and they were kind of what you'd call a hot sheet team. That is, they would come into town at 1 o'clock in the morning, check into a motel for a 7 or 8 o'clock game that night and tell their players, you can sit on the bed, but don't pull back the covers. We got a special rate that they don't have to remake the room, so you can't sleep, but you can sit on the bed.
Players washed their own uniforms and hitchhiked home from practice. And things really bottomed out with the team doctor. He was a proctologist. Still, the Titans played on, enduring other minor obstacles.
There were just some things that were missing, such as playbooks. We didn't have any playbooks, so we just carried notebooks around and sort of scribbled down plays as they came available.
Al Doro is the quarterback.
Despite that oversight, the Titans were 7-7 in each of their first 2 seasons, thanks to one of the league's best offenses.
67 yards for the touchdown.
But even when they were beating the Chargers, there was no light at the end of the tunnel.
I think there was somewhere around 2 minutes left. And the official came over and told Sammy that it was getting dark and wanted to turn the lights on. And so he telephoned upstairs to Mr. Wismer.
I guess Mr. Wismer realized if he flipped that light switch on, it's going to cost so many dollars in electricity bill.
And Mr. Wismer said, to hell with them, we're doing all right in the dark.
The sun seldom shone on the Titans of New York. Everything about the team seemed broken. Everything but their spirit.
We'd say, hell, let's just give it up. Let's just quit, you know. And they said, well, nobody really wanted to do that. We'd take a vote on it. And everybody'd say, something good will happen, you know, so let's play. We still got to play.
From playing against the Titans, you couldn't tell that they were concerned about the financial problems. They stepped on the field and they tried to hand you your helmet, and they played tough and they played aggressive.
And I think that tells you a lot about the type players that we had. that they would have probably played for nothing, because we actually were playing for nothing.
By 1962, the Titans were bankrupt. AFL owners feared a collapse of the New York franchise might take down the entire league. Men like the Oilers' Bud Adams and the Chiefs' Lamar Hunt helped keep the Titans afloat until new ownership could be found.
I believe this day that Mr. Wismer had the best intentions in the world, and he got in over his head financially.
Harry Wismer had great ideas. In fact, he is the guy that really came up with the thing that all of sports uses, share and share alike on the television money.
Without a TV contract, of course, the American Football League could not have survived, and was on its way out until it happened.
He was very free-hearted, and I think if he could ever had any money, that the Titan franchise would probably be the New York Titans today.
For us to lose that part of history it's really a shame. But we don't want to dwell on it too much, because we had a lot of fun, but it's just a part of our life that sometimes it's best not to be spoken of.
Finally, a group headed by Sonny Werblin bought the team. Werblin had been a major power broker in Hollywood. Now his entertainment marketing skills began to put his new team on the marquee. He changed the team's colors, renamed the Titans the Jets, and hired Weeb Ewbank, who coached 2 NFL championship teams in Baltimore. Good feelings were taking hold, and when the Jets moved into a new home at Shea Stadium, there was a sudden demand for tickets.
When the Jets moved into Shea Stadium, they started attracting 50,000 fans, and that was very critical for the success of the whole league. It gave the league a New York address, and it gave them a tone that they did not have before.
With a look to a new age, the Jet Age, the Jets' future was cleared for takeoff. After 4 years of futility, the Jets began playing Saturday nights at Shea, and they were ready for prime time. The roar of Jets taking off from nearby LaGuardia was drowned out by the roar of sellout crowds.
The management of the New York Jets welcomes you to the first football game at Shea Stadium. More than 52,000 fans thronged to see the Jets open the 1964 AFL season against the Denver Broncos. Tall Dick Wood at quarterback. Dick's target is Gene Heater. He's got the ball on the 6, and he drives his way into the corner for a first touchdown. History in Shea Stadium. We zoom down on Bill Mathis, the veteran, 220 pounds. He comes crashing across the right side as he spurts between the goalposts, and the Jets make their debut in Shea Stadium, a 30-6 triumph over the Denver Broncos.
The Jets made history with the AFL's first 60,000-plus crowd. By snatching rookie running back Matt Snell from the crosstown rival Giants, they made headlines.
Landing Matt Snell was very significant at the time for the simple reason the Giants wanted Matt Snell terribly. And here Matt Snell opted for the Jets, and that was a great symbolic uplifting for the Jets. And in those days, they needed all the symbolism they could get.
Matt Snell helped build Shea Stadium during his college vacations. Now he helps set records on its turf.
Sonny Werblin fought enough for me after they drafted me #1 to come out to Ohio State himself, to try to convince me that the AFL was sound, it was solid, it was going to be here. I decided that, hey, if you're going to play ball, I want to play right away. And I knew I could do it with the Jets. And I believe that this league is here to stay. Everyone considered the AFL, except the players, they considered the AFL was inferior to the NFL. I didn't think that. So it worked out fine for me.
Snell became the AFL Rookie of the Year, and the Jets became a player in the most important arena in American sports. Indeed, the Jets were flying high. Still, the team lacked a bigger-than-life personality to capture the imagination of all New York. That would change in 1965. In 1965, owner Sonny Werblin and coach Weeb Ewbank found the player that would change the destiny of the New York Jets. He was Joe Namath, an All-American quarterback from the University of Alabama. The Jets made headlines by signing him for $427,000, the richest contract in football history to that point.
Well, the first time Joe Namath arrived in New York was right after the Orange Bowl. Sonny Werblin brought him in. He had a small, kind of an informal press conference at the old Toots Shores. And the writers just sat there and just talked to him, just had conversations with him. And finally, Lou Efrat of the New York Times at that time said, Joe, you know, you got all this money, this big contract. He said, what happens if you don't make it, Joe? And Joe just looked at him and said, I'll make it.
But convincing the media and convincing his teammates were two different things.
Let me tell you, he had to prove himself because the veterans, the real veterans, really hated him, okay? Because of, you know, they're guys that have been playing for 12 years and were making $18,000, and this guy comes in and makes $427,000, didn't throw a ball yet.
I never will forget the first day of training camp, and we had a drill called pat and go, where the quarterback just pats the ball and receivers run down and he lays the ball up. And when we saw him throwing, I said, this is what we've needed.
He set up very well. He was very light on his feet. He was ready to throw on rhythm very quickly, and he just delivered the ball so well. I mean, with purpose. I mean, almost with an anger. Boom, it was out there. I'm going to complete this. The hell with you. And it was arrogant and tough and vicious. Great way to play quarterback, I think.
I'd played with 25 professional quarterbacks in my career, you know, so when he came along, I was glad I'd finally got somebody to listen to what I wanted to do, and we had a great relationship, communications, and I think that's the key in any successful event.
Namath quickly established himself as one of the game's greatest passers. But more than that, he was the hottest attraction in all of football. He was the one and only Broadway Joe.
5,000 fans after a ball game would be out there just to see Joe Namath, to wave to him, to touch him. It was sort of like the Beatles, and people climbed on the car and they climbed on the hood and hit the glass just to be able to touch him or have Joe wave to them. It was an amazing thing to actually see. I think Joe Namath, of all the players in that era, he transcended sport.
I have no official statistics on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if his career was the cause of a lot of female fans being attracted to the NFL. He had a kind of style. He was a jock, but it could be a real gentleman in his way. You know what I mean? There was something about him that was extremely suave. He had a great sense of style, even if it were outrageous. Full-length fur coats and all. I would say he was definitely an original.
Broadway Joe was a swinging bachelor who enjoyed the company of some of the 1960s most glamorous women.
Sometimes they talk about drinking and conniving around with ladies and stuff. And, you know, it seems almost un-American to me for a bachelor not to marry, you know, go around having a drink with a lady now and then. And why all of a sudden that's become an evil in me, I don't know. But some people don't like it. Well, you can't please everybody. I'm just trying to get along, you know, just trying to get by. Look at that shot.
Oh, the apartment was phenomenal. He was making a statement, I guess you could say that. He had a big living room area where he had a pool table and a slot machine and all kinds of machines, you know, big living room with couches and this, you know, 6-inch deep llama rug. I walk in as like, you know, walking into a museum. Yeah, I remember. I met an interior decorator in a nightclub one night. The guy wanted to do my part, and a couple buddies said, yeah, man, let him do it. And it turned out that the decorator did the apartment. It wasn't my idea. It was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. But where am I going to come up thinking of llama skin? I never heard of a llama in the first place prior to having the rug.
Namath was living the life of the rich and famous, but the price was high. He came into pro football with one bad knee, and that one bad knee quickly became two. He had 4 different surgeries on his knees, and he was forced to play with cumbersome braces on both legs.
His knees were the ugliest knees I've ever seen in pro football. They just weren't shaped right. And different times of the year, they're kind of shaped differently, depending on what was swollen that day. I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he functioned on those knees.
Physically and mentally, Joe was really, really a tough guy. Probably the toughest guy on the Jets. He did a lot of things that other guys on our team wouldn't have done physically.
Namath understood the code of pro football. Even if you weren't 100%, you still had to give 100%.
I always knew that you had to play with some pain because the game is going to get you. You're going to get hurt. There's a part in your head that blocks out some things when the action comes. I guess if something is more important to you than something else, then that something else is gone. If I had a pain, a broken ankle, fractured ankle, wrist, whatever, and it was time to run the play took precedent, the pain took a back seat.
Namath had a stellar supporting cast in New York, including another future Hall of Famer, wide receiver Don Maynard. Number 13 was the deep threat, while tight end Pete Lammons and number 83 George Sauer worked underneath. The fullback was Matt Snell, a bruising 220-pounder who also had the speed to turn the corner. In 1966, the Jets added Emerson Boozer. Boozer was a slippery 210-pound halfback who led the AFL with 13 touchdowns in 1967. That was the breakthrough year, when the Jets finished with an 8-5-1 record, the first winning season in franchise history. In 1968, the Jets set a team record by scoring 419 points, but it was their improvement on defense that finally made them a championship team. Number 81 defensive end Jerry Philbin recorded 19 sacks in a 14-game regular season.
They didn't play it up. It wasn't a stat at the time. So even though I get 4 sacks a game and create 3 fumbles when you hit the quarterback, you'll still get all the publicity, so it didn't matter.
If Philbin didn't get to the quarterback, the other defensive end, Verlin Biggs, usually did. Al Atkinson and number 60, Larry Grantham, an original Titan, led the linebacker corps. The Jets had 28 interceptions in 1968, 7 by defensive captain Johnny Sample. The Jets won 11 games and lost only 3 as they claimed their first ever division title. They finished the regular season by winning their last 4 games by an average margin of 19 points. The Jets were flying high as they entered the playoffs, but in the AFL championship game, they drew the toughest possible challenge and their most bitter rival, the Oakland Raiders.
The championship game was physically tougher than the Super Bowl game. Championship game against Oakland was a much tougher game physically than the Super Bowl game. Because number one, we hated each other. We wanted to kill each other, and we did try to kill each other on the field. The Raiders were number one, a tough team to beat because they were good and because they were dirty. You wanted to beat them.
Joe had criticized us the 1 or 2 days before the game about being dirty, about being trying to hurt him, about being nasty players and a lot of things.
That was just the Raider way. You know, we'd go out and kick some ass, don't worry about whose name it was. Joe was nice to hit. He grunt real good when you hit him hard. He let, I love to hear that sound on a quarterback.
The Raiders had dealt the Jets their only loss in the second half of the season. The Jets led the game in the final minute, but when NBC cut away to show the film Heidi, the national TV audience missed one of the most bizarre finishes in football history. The Jets literally handed the game to Oakland.
And Oakland has scored 2 touchdowns in 9 seconds. An unbelievable finish.
Heidi really wasn't a big thing with me. I mean, I could care less. It was Heidi Schmeidi. The only thing that bothered me was that we lost the game.
The Jets had won only 2 of their previous 10 games with the Raiders. When the teams met on a cold, windy day at Shea Stadium, Namath threw 2 touchdown passes to give the Jets the lead going into the 4th quarter.
Namath in trouble, throwing. Caught by Adams on the 10 to 5. Touchdown! And it's a touchdown for New York.
The Raiders rallied to reclaim the lead, but Namath and Maynard had an answer.
I kind of told Namath, I said, Joseph, I got a long one when you need it. Joe threw the pass, the ball's coming over my left shoulder here, and then all of a sudden the wind gets it, and all of a sudden I rotate all the way around my head and my hands, and I catch it over here, and that was, to me, the greatest catch I ever made. And as one writer in New York, when he figured out the playoff money and a lot of things, he said the catch that's worth $1 million.
But the real money catch was the one that followed as Namath found Maynard again.
Namath looking for the end zone, throwing, touchdown to Maynard. Joe Namath throwing to Don Maynard.
The Raiders came back and drove deep into Jets territory, but a mistake by Oakland's Darryl LaMonica ended the threat.
LaMonica back to pass, looking, throwing a swing pass behind. He threw the ball behind Charlie Smith. That's covered by the Jets.
And Ralph Baker picks it up. I mean, that was the game. There was unbelievable pandemonium in the locker room. That was our Super Bowl. We celebrated like it was a Super Bowl afterwards. We were throwing champagne around like it was crazy. We were throwing people in the showers. It was just unbelievable.
Come this quick. Absolutely. It's quick. 4 years. You know, you'd think it took a long time coming. 4 years. You want to win every year, first year on.
The Jets were the kings of the AFL, but how would they compete with the Baltimore Colts, champions of the NFL? The Colts had rolled to a 13-1 regular season record, and they were being talked about as one of the best teams of all time. But the Jets, after studying film of the Baltimore defense, saw the Colts as not only mortal, but very beatable.
And after the first film that we saw of Baltimore, the players, Joe, Coach Ebank, everybody, if that's the way they beat people, disguising defenses and doing a lot of blitzing, that's right up our alley.
A lot of things they did played right into the way Joe played quarterback. And they blitzed a whole lot all the time, and usually blitzing teams doing it to cover up for weaknesses. And you couldn't blitz Joe. He was the best in the world at beating a blitz.
Babe Pirelli, Bill Mathis, big boy Pete Lammons, our tight end, and myself, after a film session one morning, we're riding out to practice, and big boy Pete chuckled. He said, hey, y'all, we don't stop looking at those films, we're going to get overconfident. And we all laughed, giggle, giggle, chuckle, chuckle. But there was that underlying confidence we all had, from our tight end to Vito to Mathis. You know, we felt confident, pretty darn confident, that we were going to win the game.
Namath put that confidence into words at a Miami banquet prior to the game.
So it was my turn to get up, and I got up to the podium, and about the time I'm getting ready to talk, a guy in the back of the room, hey, Namath, we're going to kick your... You know what? I said, whoa, wait a minute. You guys been talking for 2 weeks now, meaning the Colts fans and the media. So you guys been talking for 2 weeks now. I said, I'm tired of hearing it. I said, I got news for you. We're going to win the game. I guarantee it. It was not planned. It wasn't premeditated. It was just anger and frustration. And I really believed we were going to win the game.
When he said that I guarantee you stuff, Weeb Ewbank nearly fainted. That's the last thing he wanted, was to wake them up. He liked them complacent and overconfident, and then now his quarterback is giving him something to be annoyed about.
Coach Ewbank came in the day after that statement came out in the papers. Coach Ewbank was over to him. He said, Joseph, he said, did you see this? You know, and he said, Namath, guarantee we win, okay? And Joe looks at it and he goes, and you can see him going, oh, God. And he looks up and he says, did you say that, Joe? He looks up and says, yeah, Coach. I said, oh, Joe, why'd you say that? You know what they're going to do, man. They're going to take this, they're going to put it on the walls of the locker room, they're going to come out, they're going to try and kill it. Man, they're going to want to kill us, you know. And you could see Joe was thinking, he's trying to come back, you know. And then finally Joe said, Coach, you've been telling us for the last 2 weeks we're going to win. He said, don't you think we're going to win, Coach? And Coach, of course course we're going to win. I just told him what you're telling us. This is not a big deal, you know.
I thought that what it showed, most importantly, was to his own teammates that Joe Namath was still Joe Namath. He wasn't intimidated by these circumstances. He was the same fast-talking, irreverent guy that he'd always been. And his confidence in his ability and in his teammates, I think, spoke volumes.
Joe Namath was a tough competitor and a tough guy. He didn't back down to nobody. And when he guaranteed that, he meant it. And you know, that really meant something to me as a player and to the defense and to the offense. You got a quarterback that's this tough. He can back up what he says.
Joe Namath, number 12, has been the one big sidelight. He's come down here and he says the Jets are going to win. In fact, he doesn't even predict it. He says, I guarantee a Jet victory.
When you look at Namath and you see a defiance, no fear, what are you going to say? Let's go get it, let's do it. And we did.
The Jets were 17-point underdogs, but Namath had identified every soft spot in the Baltimore defense, and he attacked them. He called virtually every play at the line of scrimmage, and his cool command kept the Jets one step ahead of the Colts' fearsome blitz.
I knew we could beat that defense. We had Maynard, we had Sarr, we had Lamb and Snell and Boozer and Mathis, guys that could read. We had an offensive line that could pick up stunts. And I could just let them know before each snap of the ball what they were going to do. We had intelligent enough 10 guys besides myself that could accept 75 to 80% plays from the line of scrimmage.
Namath back to pass again, in the pocket, throwing, and it's caught by George Sauer, leaping catch on the Baltimore 34.
When we did come with a blitz, other quarterbacks weren't able to handle it, but Namath, with his quick release, was able to get rid of the ball. Their receivers made quick adjustments against our defensive backs, and they came up with big plays. Instead of us creating havoc with the blitz, they beat the blitz and made big plays that helped them win the football game.
Even Jets fans were shocked at how thoroughly the AFL upstarts controlled the game. Jim Turner kicked 3 field goals, and Matt Snell rushed for 121 yards as the Jets befuddled a Baltimore defense that was considered football's best.
We'd wait for them to shift and then just call the play. It drove them crazy. Billy Ray Smith and Mad Dog Curtis and these guys, they're yelling at each other. Well, how can they, I had 2 guys on me, and we knew we had the game because they couldn't believe that we were picking up all their blitzes and all their shifts the way we were doing it, but we were doing it with a check with me offense.
I had it on last time. That's why I threw the ball away. I had a 60-yard rip on. But they didn't safety blitz. They checked it off. Did you check it though? Yeah, I checked the line. I had something else on.
The New York defense was also frustrating the Colts.
Knowing that we had probably 2 of the best innovative coaches in football with Buddy Ryan and Walt Michaels, they put a game plan that confused the Colts. Believe me, we weren't going to be in a 4-3 defense, that's for sure. The last thing we were in, we showed them everything but a 4-3 defense.
Tom Mitchell got hit right in the breadbasket on a pass from Morrill. He was wide open. The ball bounced up into the air, and Randy Beverly made a diving interception.
Colts quarterback Earl Morrill was the NFL Player of the Year in 1968. But Morrill had a nightmarish game in Super Bowl III. He threw 3 interceptions, and with the Colts trailing 16-0 late in the third quarter, Don Shula replaced Morrill with Johnny Unitas. But the result was the same.
Unitas goes back to pass. He's in the pocket. Unitas throwing for the end zone. It is intercepted in the end zone by Randy Beverly. He downs the ball.
Joe Namath had delivered on his guarantee of victory. He was named the game's most valuable player as the Jets counted down the final seconds.
Unitas back to pass. 2 seconds, 1 second. Unitas throwing to Richardson. He has the ball in the 49. Brought down by Sample. The clock has run out, and the ball game is over. There's the gun, and the Jets are champions of the football world.
And the minute the game was over, the first thing that in my mind was the game ball. To go get the football, and I got the football, and from then on, all I remember doing is the vertical leap. I think mine might have been a world's record. because all I knew was that it was probably the happiest, most fantastic moment of my life.
When the game ended, there was such a feeling of elation, joy, a tickling explosion inside. The teammates, we did it! We did it, It was wonderful. And going off that field, everybody's cheering funny. We did it, we did it, we did it. We were number one. I didn't think about it. It was just, yes, yes, yes. Oh, it was great.
It was called the biggest upset in sports history. For the first time, the nation had to recognize the existence and the worth of the new league.
What are you going to do with the money, John? I don't know. Money's not important, It's the win. We're the world champs, That's the only important thing.
I will say this to everybody. We're humble winners. I think the NFL should be humble winners also. I'd like to think that this will bring all of football closer together, because if this does anything, this will solidify the thinking of the public that football is football, the American League and the NFL can be mentioned in the same breath.
Just a win, we're outspoken people.
I don't know about that. I know it's a hell of a loss for those folks who picked it the other way.
The Jets returned to New York as conquering heroes.
I tell you, it was a party in New York for about a month. Everywhere you went, no matter what it was, if it was a club, if it was a theater, people were so happy and so proud of the New York Jets as if they were a part of our team, and they were.
In a sense, it had to do with reinventing New York. It just became bigger than itself. It became the Big Apple. Everyone knows New York, but those were swift times. There were all kinds of things happening, and this was, by pure coincidence, a timely event that fit in so perfectly with its time, and I think lifted the whole thing into a bigger thing than just a game, even a championship one. It started big-time everything.
That game, still to this day, as picked on ESPN this year before the Super Bowl, the greatest Super Bowl ever played. And not only for the game itself, but for what it did for football, because that game made the NFL what it is today.
The Jets' win validated the merger of the NFL and AFL. Pro football became more popular and profitable than ever. But while the game itself flourished, the Jets went into decline. In 1969, they lost to Kansas City in the AFL playoffs. The Chiefs battered Joe Namath and held the Jets without a touchdown. The Jets would not return to the postseason for another 12 years. From 1970 through 1974, Namath sat out 28 of 56 regular season games due to injury. But when he was able to play, he proved the old magic was still there.
The greatest game, the comeback game that we lost, was against the 49ers at the stadium.
It was week 11 of the 1971 season. Namath was sidelined by an injury. But when the other Jet quarterbacks went down in the fourth quarter, Namath entered the game.
And he comes in there, and we go down the field, we score a touchdown, and the place is going crazy. We kick off to them, boom, our defense holds, boom, they punt to us. It's halfway through the fourth quarter. Namath comes back, takes the team down, scores a touchdown, The place is going crazy. Right? And we kick off to them, and our defense holds. There's a minute and a half left, and we get the ball on the 8-yard line, and Namath takes it right down the whole field. The stadium is going crazy. One play left, and he throws a pass, one pass to Eddie Bell, and what happened? And the defender is there and catches the ball. We lost 21-17. But the people kept clapping for 15 minutes after the game was over. It was the greatest game, the greatest comeback I've ever seen, as far as even losing the game, but the people and what that guy could do was unbelievable.
Joe Namath played 12 seasons with the Jets. In his later years, Namath was a hobbling shadow of the superstar who led the Jets to glory in Super Bowl III. But in the collective memory of American sports fans, he will always be Broadway Joe. The first quarterback to pass for 4,000 yards in a season. The first quarterback to lead the AFL to victory over the NFL. And the first Jets player elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There will only be one Joe Namath.
Namath is like one of those great athletes who lives fast and dies young. Bill Walton, Gale Sayers, Sandy Koufax have a few great seasons and leave an indelible mark because of it. Those guys, they're meteors, but they light up the sky when they're great.
A new era of Jets football had begun. The rebuilding started in 1977 with another quarterback from Alabama, Richard Todd.
I came in during the summer. I was our #1 guy. I've played every down so far in every regular season game. I'm learning. I can read things better. When you're young, you have to do that. You have to play to learn.
The second-year pro teamed up with rookie receiver Wesley Walker, and the tandem revitalized the Jets' passing game. The Jets also reconstructed their defense. In 1977, they drafted defensive tackle Joe Klecko in the 6th round. Klecko started 6 games as a rookie, but soon became a force against both the pass and the run. 2 years later, New York drafted Marty Lyons and Mark Gastineau to bolster the defensive front. By 1981, Klecko, Lyons, Gastineau, and Abdul Salam formed the NFL's best pass rush, a unit dubbed the New York Sack Exchange.
I don't think you can say enough about it, the quality of athlete Joe Klecko was. Here was a guy that made All-Pro in 3 different positions and an ultimate team player.
Marty was so big. He was such a dominant run player. Abdul was the strongest guy I ever come up against in my life. Nobody could really block him one-on-one. Mark was the dominant pass rusher. He was the guy who wanted to get the quarterback. We just could flat out play, you know, and we complemented each other so well.
Once you were labeled as the New York Sack Exchange, you know, going out every Sunday, it was fun to play football.
The Sack Exchange was a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. Their prolific pass rush forced the NFL to recognize the sack as an official statistic. Individually, Mark Gastineau piled up the takedowns, setting the league's sack record in 1984 with 22, a mark that stood until 2001. In 1981, the 3-4-1 Jets faced their crosstown rivals at Giant Stadium. Richard Todd and Wesley Walker led the Jets to a 26-7 romp. The Week 9 victory was a turning point for the franchise. The years of rebuilding were paying off. New York won 6 of its next 7 games and rose above adversity. In Week 12 against the Dolphins, the Jets trailed 15-9 late in the 4th quarter.
These fans are on their feet. 21 seconds remaining as Todd is back to pass. He's looking into the end zone.
The Jets had become winners, with both their offense and defense contributing. At 10-5-1, the Jets had their best record since 1969.
Todd rolls to the right, back to pass. He is throwing deep for Lamb.
New York had clinched a spot in the playoffs.
After so much sacrifice and so much work and preparation, man, it's great. Now, I've never been in the playoffs before. I never played on a team that was over 500.
I can't believe it. After all those years of just finishing out the season, to finally have, to finally know the season's over and you got at least one more game.
The Jets' first playoff game in 12 years began badly. The Bills scored on the opening kickoff and expanded their lead to 24-0 in the 2nd quarter. trailing 31-13 in the fourth quarter, New York's gritty defense keyed a Jets rally. A pair of touchdowns closed the gap to 4 points. With less than 3 minutes remaining, the Jets drove to the Bills' 11-yard line.
One of the most exciting ball games I have ever seen. The Jets trail 31-27, 10 seconds remaining, third in the season.
New York had fallen short, but was again among the NFL's elite. The New York Jets had gotten a taste for the playoffs. 1982 began with high hopes and many weapons. In a strike-shortened season, second-year running back Freeman McNeil led the NFL in rushing.
McNeil in the backfield breaks a tackle of 30, 25, 20, they go all the way, 50, 10, 5, touchdown, New York Jets! Back to pass, taught on play action, loops it to McNeil all alone at the 50. Back down the 5, looking for a block, Gaffney gets it all, touchdown!
The Jets won 6 games and faced the Cincinnati Bengals in the first round of the playoffs. New York trailed 14-3 before Freeman McNeil used his arm to close the gap.
He throws the option pass, touchdown! Touchdown, New York Jets! Talk about a wrinkle! Here's McNeil, right side, turns inside, the 15, the 10, the 5, he's got a touchdown!
McNeil's 202 rushing yards helped the Jets to a 30-17 fourth quarter lead. Safety Darrell Ray secured the win, returning one of the Jets' 3 interceptions 98 yards for a touchdown. New York would be back on the road the next week, traveling to Los Angeles to face the top-seeded Raiders. From the beginning, the Jets' defense showed it was not intimidated.
What a great hit.
The Jets took an early 10-0 lead as Richard Todd found Wesley Walker for a 20-yard score. Trailing in the second half, the Jets began their comeback.
4:59 remaining, 14-10 LA. Todd drops back to pass. He's looking deep for Wesley. A step with the defender. He's got it at the 2 and rolls into the end zone. It's going to be ruled out at the 1-yard line. Todd gives to Scotty, right side, touchdown! Touchdown, New York Jets!
Holding a 3-point edge, New York looked to its defense to seal the win. Linebacker Lance Mel got the ball back for New York. But with under 3 minutes remaining, the Raiders had a final chance.
Lumping back to pass. He pops, fires over the middle. Lance Mel comes up with a second interception here in the fourth quarter. The Jets have the ball back. They can run the clock out. The Raiders do not have any timeouts remaining, and the Jets appear on their way to the AFC Championship.
1 week later in Miami, the Jets faced the Dolphins for the right to go to the Super Bowl. In order to neutralize New York's speed advantage, Miami did not cover or drain the waterlogged field. The Jets' season ended in the mud of the Orange Bowl.
If you looked at the two teams at that time from team speed standpoint, to have the field in that condition, I mean, it just eliminated our game. If anybody asked me about the most disappointing time in your life as a football player, that is the most disappointing.
In 1983, New York drafted a new quarterback.
The Jets take as their first round selection, quarterback, Ken O'Brien of California Davis.
O'Brien was booed, as you say, like every other Jet fan, but it was because he was coming from a small college, and the real educated Jet fan wondered about why did we pass on Marino, and he was unfortunately judged against Dan Marino, which I thought was unfair to him.
One of the things that really bothered me was the fact that Kenny O'Brien never got the credit that he was due. He came in with that top class with John Elway and Marino. But if you ask a regular fan and a New York Jet fan, they would not put probably Kenny O'Brien in that category. And I think he deserves to be there.
You say, gee, I wish there would be more people that he was compared against at the days. Maybe we would have done a little better. But Kenny was a real good quarterback. There's no doubt he was a good quarterback. His track record proves it again.
By 1985, Ken O'Brien had turned the Jets' offense into one of the most explosive in football. O'Brien led the league in passing yards, and New York had an offense that matched the skill of its defense.
4th and less than a yard for the Indianapolis Colts. Pagel gets the snap. He gives it to Bentley. He didn't take it. Jets have stuffed the Colts.
O'Brien's new weapon was rookie receiver Al Toon. In a blowout of Tampa Bay, Toon's 78-yard catch and run accounted for 6 of the Jets' franchise record 62 points. But Toon's touchdown wasn't the longest of the season. 3 weeks later, O'Brien set a Jets record by connecting with Wesley Walker on a 96-yard touchdown. The Jets reached the playoffs with an 11-5 record. By 1986, all the pieces were in place. A Week 3 showdown with Miami featured 2 quarterbacks drafted in 1983, Dan Marino and Ken O'Brien.
When you're playing against your contemporary and you're compared to that person all the time, I'm sure Kenny had an extra incentive there to do well against Marino.
I think it was something that he wanted to show everybody that he could throw the ball pretty good too.
Marino and O'Brien played a game for the ages, combining for 927 total passing yards. Marino threw 3 first-half touchdown strikes to take a 21-17 lead. New York's weapon of choice was number 85, Wesley Walker. Walker caught a pair of touchdown passes in the first half.
O'Brien throwing long down the sideline. Walker's wide open. Touchdown. There was nobody within 20 yards of Walker, and the Jets are back in the lead on a 65-yard touchdown pass. O'Brien back to throw. O'Brien with time. Throwing near sideline for Wesley Walker. He's got it to 20. Walker touches the 10. Walker touchdown. Giants Stadium is going berserk.
The Jets went into the locker room with a 31-21 lead.
You're always surprised when you do get man-to-man coverage, but we create that. We dictate to defenses and not have the defense dictate to us.
But it was Marino who dictated matters in the second half. He turned New York miscues into 17 points, and the game was tied at 38. Late in the fourth quarter, Miami got a break on Wesley Walker's fumble.
I didn't think I had possession of the ball, which they ruled a fumble. When that fumble happened, I thought it was over then. When you make a mistake, it's very frustrating. Certainly, I thought I had lost that football game.
The Dolphins capitalized with Marino's 6th touchdown pass.
We had probably just under a minute to go to try to make a final drive.
The one constant we had as a football team was a never-give-up attitude. We would fight right to the end.
Ken O'Brien completed 5 passes on the final drive to lead the Jets into range for a tying touchdown.
5 seconds left in the game. O'Brien back to throw. O'Brien being rushed. O'Brien throwing over the middle. Wesley Walker, touchdown! Touchdown! There is no time remaining. Wesley Walker, touchdown Jets! They are going berserk. The Jets have time to score with no time left on the clock.
It's like it was just meant to be, and the ball just stuck there right in my hands, and I was like in a dream world, and I couldn't believe it. There is no feeling like that when, no time is left in the end zone to tie the game up.
On their first possession of overtime, the Jets completed the comeback.
O'Brien throwing long down the sideline for Walker, and he got it! Touchdown! 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 The Jets win it! Touchdown! Wesley Walker
It gave you a little reprieve, I think, for Barroom Bragan, for the Marino guy who'd been killing you all the years. You got to throw your chest out and feel big about yourself for a while.
It was just a thrill. It was so good to beat them in such a big game and in the fashion that we did.
It was always nice when you won and when you were one of the focal points, and that made me very, very happy. And certainly in 1986, that Miami shootout, 51-45, made me very, very happy. And when you watch it, and when you sit back and reflect on it, and you look at those performances, you say, wow, how could this possibly be?
That game maybe set our confidence level up to where it should have been from the original start of the middle 80 era.
After winning the shootout with the Dolphins, the Jets' confidence grew. New York won its next 8 games, improving to 10-1. They were in command of their division. But as their victories mounted, so too did their injuries.
We lost a lot of guys with injuries. Not just guys, Pro Bowlers, outstanding players.
The Jets lost their final 5 games and their grip on the AFC East.
The thing I'm most proud about in 1986 is that even though we went down the last 4 or 5 games and we weren't the same team, we made the playoffs.
Let's go, Jets! Let's go, Jets!
At 10-6, New York had earned a home playoff game against the Chiefs. Joe Walton looked to give his club a spark. He started longtime backup quarterback Pat Ryan. Ryan ignited the Jets, running for a key first down and passing for 3 touchdowns.
Ryan back to throw. Ryan with time. Throwing. Touchdown to Al Toon. Come on, give him a hole. Give him a crack.
Freeman McNeil's 2 first-half scores gave the Jets a 21-6 halftime lead.
Come on, defense!
The Jets' defense forced a pair of sacks and 3 turnovers, including a 21-yard interception return for a touchdown.
It's intercepted by Kevin McArthur, and he's going to run it in for a touchdown! First play, second half, he was untouched by human hand.
New York's victory was their first home playoff win since 1968. The following week, the Jets traveled to Cleveland for the AFC Divisional Playoffs. New York took an early 7-0 lead.
Uh-oh, it's going to be a flea flicker. Ryan throwing long over the middle for Walker, and Walker's got a touchdown! Touchdown, Wesley Walker! What a great catch! What a great play!
Freeman McNeil gave the Jets a 20-10 lead, but Cleveland pulled to within 3 with under 2 minutes remaining. Late in the fourth quarter, a roughing the passer penalty on Mark Gastineau gave the Browns new life. Cleveland got into range for the tying field goal, and in double overtime, the Browns sent the Jets to one of the most heartbreaking losses in their history. The following year saw the continued development of young stars like Al Toon. Number 88 led the AFC in receptions in 1987 and 88 and was named to the Pro Bowl both years. But one of his biggest touchdowns came against the Giants in the waning moments of the 1988 season.
O'Brien looking right and left. A pass into the left corner. Touchdown! 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 Al Toon has a touchdown!
Toon's score kept the Giants from going to the playoffs and gave the Jets a winning record.
We had a good team, and we had a good run. In 1988, we had decided as an organization to try to get some more young players to rebuild. Some of the better players we had were coming to the end of their line.
The Jets were undergoing a youth movement as Joe Klecko, Mark Gastineau, and Marty Lyons left the green and white.
When we came back in '89, as young people will do sometimes when they go and then they regress a little bit, that didn't turn out well in '89, and everybody was frustrated.
The frustration continued into the early 90s as the losses continued. In a 1992 game against Kansas City, fan favorite Dennis Byrd collided with a teammate. Byrd hit head first and broke a vertebra, leaving him paralyzed. The following week, the 3-9 Jets played inspired football against the heavily favored Buffalo Bills.
Goes to Baxter, trying to swing wide around his right side. He drives downfield the 5. It goes into the end zone, and touchdown! Back to pass. Kelly throws short of the intercepted. New York ball over the right side, down into the end zone. Touchdown, New York! Washington scores!
The Jets stun the Bills 24-17.
The New York Jets are going to win this football game for Dennis Byrd.
D-Bird! D-Bird, this is for you, baby! D-Bird, baby! For you, D-Bird! We got one, baby!
We have Dennis Byrd on the phone in there, and all the players are talking to him. And it goes without saying that he got the game ball. We thought it should be that way, and we thought that was the right thing to do.
No one knew if Dennis Byrd would ever walk again. But 10 weeks after his devastating injury, Byrd held a press conference to announce he would continue his rehabilitation at home.
Very proud to be standing before you here today. And quite frankly, I'm glad to be standing anywhere today. And obviously that was written down. I'd like to thank New York, the people of New York, everybody that sent me letters and cards. I don't know how to thank them for what they've done. All I can do is say thank you. And I'm very proud to say that I'm a New York Jet. And I will be forever.
During the opening game of the 1993 season, Dennis Byrd walked onto the Meadowlands field. Unfortunately, the inspiration didn't last. The Jets spent much of the early 90s mired in losing seasons. A series of coaching changes didn't help. It was particularly dark in 1996 after a 1-15 season.
I was not fired. I'm not quitting. Every week, fought, played hard, and come up short. The expectations weren't that high by Mr. Hess. What he wanted to turn this program around and be respectable. And we have not been respectable. We've been everything but respectable.
We're terribly excited. We're proud. We don't have a hell of a lot to be proud for the way we've played the last few years. We're all thrilled. Bill Parcells has joined us.
I'd like to thank the New York Jet organization for their expressed confidence in me to take on this, what I view as a consummate challenge, to hopefully revitalize this franchise.
Come on, you need to be a good returner. We're counting on you to do this. Hard job, to be good at it. There's a lot of guys who go back there and just fool around. Yeah, but it's a hard job to be good at it. Sprint to it. Set your feet. Set your feet. And catch the ball. Catch the ball. Don't tell me about that, son. Set your feet. Set your feet. Set your feet. Get back. Get back. Set up. Set up. Good. Score. There you go.
There's been a positive reaction. Everybody's taken to what he's trying to do, and everybody's trying to get better. That's the biggest thing. We know we have to get better because we were at the bottom. So now we're trying to work our way back up.
Bill Parcells has the knack of being able to squeeze
every last drop of ability out of players.
There's no one there that questions whether this guy knows what he's doing, because he has proven that he knows how to win football games. That's really what the Jets needed. They needed somebody in there that knew how to win games, how to build a team that could go win games.
I'm just trying to improve the team. My expectations for players are generally pretty high. I'm fairly demanding as a coach. It's about winning and what I think is the best way to win. My goal basically as a coach is always the same, to try to win the division and compete for the championship.
In 1997, there was a new air around the Jets as they routed Seattle on opening day.
O'Donnell back to throw on 2nd and 10. Looking long, going for the end zone. Corbett, lunging catch. Touchdown, Jets! What a play! And the Jets putting together a dominating performance. What a way to open the season.
Throughout the year, the Jets made it clear they were no longer pushovers. New York went 5-3 over the first half of the season, their best start in more than a decade. In a Week 13 game against Minnesota, the Jets jumped out to an early lead.
It's a high butt. Johnson makes the catch right side, breaks the tackle, across the 45, into Minnesota territory. Across the 40 to the 30. Leon Johnson is gone. Touchdown, Jets.
But late in the game, the Vikings were 2 points away from a tie.
Johnson, handoff, Smith trying to bust out to the right side, and he's brought down at the 5-yard line. The Jets hold on. They win 23-21. The New York Jets improve to 8-4, and they do it in dramatic fashion.
The Jets were the surprise team of the league, finishing 9-7.
Dilfer, quick throw, and it's incomplete and picked off, intercepted by Otis Smith down the right side. Otis Smith breaks a tackle. He's to the 10. He's in. Touchdown, Jets. Off the deflection, Otis Smith.
Although the Jets narrowly missed the playoffs, the one-year turnaround was the greatest in franchise history.
Wow, what a difference a year makes.
I've been on some losing teams, 3-13, 1-15. If you continue to play hard, good things going to happen. We went 9-7. That was my first time ever went over 500. It felt like we went to the Super Bowl.
In the offseason, the Jets signed Curtis Martin, a running back who is well known to Bill Parcells.
He's the kind of player that inspires me to coach better. Not because he's talented, because he has like this insatiable wanting to know what you know.
New York also signed journeyman quarterback Vinny Testaverde.
When I signed with the Jets, I was going to be a backup quarterback, but I also told Coach Parcells that I was ready to start at any moment.
Testaverde's moment came in Week 3. With Glenn Foley injured and the Jets at 0-2, Testaverde came to the Jets' rescue.
Testaverde back, sets up the screen to Leon Johnson. Across the 25-30. Johnson in the clear, 40. Johnson to the 50. Out of a tackle down the sideline. Looking at the Colts in his rearview mirror. Touchdown Jets. 82 yards of a play. Looking over the middle. Now in trouble. Scrambling, throwing it. Got it. Keyshawn Johnson. Touchdown. 4 TD passes by Testaverde.
I think the Jets have a quarterback for a few years to come in Vinny Testaverde.
Bill Parcells' decision to change quarterbacks inspired wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson, the former first overall pick.
People were surprised when Parcells and Keyshawn hit it off. In Parcells, Keyshawn saw a guy that could help him win. In Keyshawn, Parcells saw a guy that had the toughness he likes.
In 1998, with their key players in sync, New York's offense was unstoppable. Keyshawn Johnson enjoyed his best season as the Jets piled up the second most points and total yards in their history. On defense, the Jets were one of the most exciting teams in the league.
The Jets needed a big play, and Aaron Glenn obliged.
tell you, Jet fans, you got a team you can be very proud of right now.
The blitz is on, the pitch to Martin, trying to run left, cuts it back. Curtis Martin could go. He's going to go, touchdown.
Wayne Chrebet was one of the league's best clutch receivers, and he and Keyshawn Johnson helped the Jets set a club record with 12 wins.
Testaverde, quick drop, looking left, throwing into the end zone, touchdown! Keyshawn Johnson, his 10th of the year, and that is a personal best for KJ. Takes the snap, quarterback draw, Testaverde to the goal line, touchdown! Testaverde on the pitch to Martin, running right. Tries to cut back inside the 5, touchdown! Curtis Martin.
In Week 16, the Jets were playing for the division crown. With the score tied at 10, one big play gave New York the lead.
He's got Ward who makes the grab, and Dedrick Ward's gone. He's going to score. Touchdown, New York Jets. Dedrick Ward as the New York Jets silence the crowd.
A key defensive play secured the victory.
Throws it out to the right, and the ball is tipped and intercepted.
With a 17-10 win, the Jets earned the AFC East title.
Certainly, the kids that I inherited here at the Jets, I know that's a tremendous satisfaction for them. Here you tell them to believe in something, and hey, you believe in a program, and if you work and try to achieve, something good will happen. They hadn't experienced it like the Jumbos and the Colin Browns and the Otis Smiths and those kids.
In the AFC divisional playoffs, the Jets hosted the Jacksonville Jaguars.
A trip to Denver and the AFC Championship game is on the line today as the New York Jets host the Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC playoffs. The Jets hosting their first playoff game here at the Meadowlands since 1986.
I'm not scared. Are you scared?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Maybe read the papers about your history. That's not very good. All right? You got a chance to write a new page today. A new page in history.
The Jets came out firing, and the Testaverde to Johnson connection gave New York the early lead.
Play action, Testaverde has time, into the end zone, touchdown! Touchdown, New York Jets, Keyshawn Johnson!
Bill Parcells reached deep into his playbook, and a reverse increased the Jets' lead to 17-0. But just before halftime, Jacksonville struck back.
Deep down the middle of the ballpark, down the sidelines, got a man. It is caught for a touchdown. A touchdown to Jimmy Smith as time expires in the first half. And it puts a pin in what has to this point been a perfect first half by the New York Jets.
The Jaguars wouldn't go quietly, but the Jets would not be denied. A pair of second-half Curtis Martin touchdowns gave the Jets a 31-24 lead. A last chance for the Jaguars was snuffed out by an unlikely hero.
Wow! A memorable first postseason game for KJ. He has scored 2 touchdowns. He has recovered a critical fumble. He has intercepted a pass.
The New York Jets advanced to their first conference championship in 16 years. They had completed a dramatic turnaround and returned the franchise to glory. On May 7th, 1999, owner Leon Hess passed away.
I know after we won the game against Jacksonville, the playoff game at home, I sensed a tremendous sense of happiness in him.
Leon Hess thought it was an honor and a privilege to be involved with the Jets. He was dedicated. He was dedicated to the team. And by bringing in Bill Parcells, he really, which was one of the last things he did, I think he really set the Jets up in a good way.
I never spoke with him one time in the course of my tenure here where he didn't encourage me. Not one single conversation. Every single time that he spoke with me, he gave me words of encouragement. And that, even at some times of the hardest times, we'd lost a game or something that we should have won, and he always went just the opposite. And I'll tell you, it was really kind of an inspiration to me.
The Jets entered 1999 filled with promise, but the season began in sadness and disappointment.
After the play, Testaverde down on the deck, and he is in a lot of pain.
He's going to have to be helped off. He needs help.
It looks anything but positive right now.
Without number 16, the Jets appeared lost. They struggled to a 1-6 start. The Jets turned their season around on a Monday night against the Patriots. Ray Lucas became the starter, and he brought with him an excitement that lifted the team.
He was throwing balls everywhere, touchdowns, and we just lit it on fire that night. For us to go into New England and beat them on Monday night is where it all started. We went 7-2 from that point.
Lucas eludes a sack, takes off. Ray Lucas, touchdown, untouched.
How about that, folks?
Lucas with a pro set behind him. Now rolling right. Planting and throwing back to the left. Towards Keyshawn Johnson in the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! Lucas with the bomb to Keyshawn Johnson.
Any team that's 1-6 could just fold the tent and say it's over with. To go 7-2 after a 1-6 start is an incredible feat for any team. And at that point in the season, the last game, 16th week, we were the best AFC team in the league.
After the season, Bill Parcells resigned.
I informed Steve Gutman last evening after the game prior to leaving the dressing room that I was going to step down as the head coach of the Jets. I demanded a lot from the players in terms of commitment, and they have a right to have the same from me. I think the future is bright. I think the basis here is pretty strong for at least a perpetuation of some of the success that we have had.
Al Groh was named head coach of the New York Jets in 2000. And while the year didn't have a heavenly finish, it did have its share of miracles.
I would say I would have to go back to when everybody counters out against the Miami Dolphins. And they said, this game is over.
This game is over.
Agreed.
They ain't coming back on us.
No, come on now.
It was called the Midnight Miracle, an unbelievable comeback that began in the fourth quarter of a Monday night game against the Dolphins. The Jets scored a team record 30 points in the fourth quarter.
Testaverde back to throw. Throws out to the left. He's got Trebek. Makes the grab in the end zone. Touchdown. Touchdown, New York Jets. Wade Trebek with 3:55 remaining, and the Dolphins are shaken.
We done messed up and let them back.
With under a minute left, New York tied the score at 37.
Testaverde back to throw. Dumps it over the middle. Caught. Struggled. Is it held? Touchdown. Touchdown to Jumbo Elliott. Jumbo Elliott. Jumbo, 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 Jumbo. Don't give up on them, folks. They are a gritty lot. Good snap. Placement is down. The kick is away. John Hall has completed an improbable comeback by the New York Jets.
In 2001, Herman Edwards replaced Al Groh as head coach of the Jets. The tragic events of September 11, 2001, devastated New York. Games were postponed as the nation came to terms with unimaginable loss. The team grieved with the city, and like all of New York, rose up stronger than before. In 2001, Curtis Martin went over 10,000 career yards from scrimmage.
Hey, what's it look like back here when you watch Curtis run?
Oh, sweet.
4th and 1 from the Kansas City 25-yard line. Hands to Martin running left to the outside to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown! Curtis Martin, 25 yards.
He wanted the football. He wanted to carry it 25, 28, 30 times a game. He was a dedicated football guy who embraced New York as soon as he got here.
Perennial Pro Bowl center Kevin Mawai embraced his role opening holes for Martin.
Oh, Donnie, no I didn't. No I didn't. No I didn't. I just did that to you. Woo! Oh, yeah! Woo! Yes, sir! Woo!
The Jets continued their mastery of the Dolphins, winning their 8th in a row against Miami.
Testaverde looks left. Little fade to Coles. He makes the catch. Touchdown!
When you do things together, man, you believe you can conquer anything. And that's what this team's about, man. You're right. Nobody expected it but us.
In 2002, the Jets had a slow start and were forced to rely on an unproven quarterback. Many questioned the direction of the team, but the Jets quickly found answers.
You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game.
The team won 7 of its last 9 games behind quarterback Chad Pennington.
Pennington throwing deep right corner in the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! Fakes at the 5 into the end zone. What a run by Chad Pennington!
If you're not a believer, you better start believing the Jets are back. They cannot stop us when we execute, all right? They can't do it. Can't cover us, can't stop us.
In Week 17, all eyes were on the score of the Patriots-Dolphins game.
Adam Vinatieri's ready to go. Snap, the ball down, the kick up. The kick is on the way. The kick is good!
Folks, I think you can hear in the background what may have just happened in New England. It is bedlam here at the Meadowlands. The Jets are now playing for a division title. Curtis Martin up the middle, blasts towards the goal line. Is he in? Touchdown, Jets!
That's how you run a power. Good job.
The Jets will celebrate a division title. A shocking AFC Eastern Division championship team in the New York Jets.
How sweet does that sound?
We are live at the Meadowlands. The AFC Eastern Division champion New York Jets will entertain Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts. Screen left, play action. Richie Anderson makes the catch. He's at the 45. To the 20, 10, 5, diving, touchdown! Pennington plants, throws, end zone, wide open, making the catch, touchdown! Santana Moss!
It was one of the most dominant wins in playoff history.
Manning intercepted. Good night, Ivory. And the Jets will now preserve that shutout. And the Jets have blown the doors off the Indianapolis Colts.
In 2004, a hard-hitting defense helped lead the drive to the playoffs.
Fumbles the football in the end zone. The Jets have recovered. Curtis Martin off left tackle, down the sideline at the 10, at the 5. He's into the end zone.
We were going to the playoffs, and so it's official. We get to go.
Because they only send out 12 letters.
It never rains in Southern California until tonight. Jets and the Chargers, their AFC wildcard game from sunny San Diego, minus the sun.
Pennington, play action, steps up in the pocket, wants the bomb. Santana Moss, a 47-yard touchdown strike from Chad Pennington.
The Jets had pushed around the favored Chargers, but their fate was uncertain until San Diego pushed a kick.
It is no good! He missed it wide right, and the Jets have new life. And here comes Doug Bryan with 35 seconds to go in overtime to try and win it for the Jets. On the way, good! And the Jets win it in overtime!
In the divisional playoffs against the Steelers, the Jets took a 17-10 lead into the fourth quarter.
To the Steelers 40, he's gone! Touchdown! No flags!
But the history of the Jets is full of unbelievable hits and heartbreaking misses. New York missed 2 field goals in the fourth quarter, and Pittsburgh won in overtime. In 2006, the Big Apple turned to former Patriots defensive coordinator Eric Mangini as their new head coach.
It's my pleasure and honor to introduce the next head coach of the New York Jets, Eric Mangini.
Thank you very much. My philosophy is we're going to take advantage of the strengths of our players, whatever they may be.
Back to throw Pennington. Steps up, looks left, fires left at the goal line. Touchdown!
Good job. Good drive, fellas. Good drive. We want smart guys.
Pennington drops back under pressure again. Hit as he throws wide right. Caught by Jericho Cotchery. First down. Was he knocked down? He jumps up, runs the right side. Wow! Touchdown!
Want hard-working guys. Want tough guys. Want guys that are competitive at everything.
At the 40, makes a man miss, runs the left sideline to the 30, he's at the 25, he's at the 15, cuts it back at the 5, end zone, touchdown!
Blocks downfield, people helping their teammates.
That'll be the defining characteristics of the Jets moving forward.
Justin Miller deep to receive the kickoff at the goal line. Out to his right across the 10, has a lane to the 15, gets loose at the 20, makes a man miss, and he's in the open field at the 40, stiff arms a man at the 50, Miller's done it before, he's about to do it again! A 100-yard touchdown return by Justin Miller.
This is building a culture. It's building a team, and it's building an organization.
Brady under pressure, hit as he throws. It's down on the ground. That might be a fumble. That might end the game. Down to 2 seconds. Down to 1. It's over. The Jets win it.
The Jets won 5 of their last 6 games under Mangini and made the playoffs.
Hitch out, running left, Washington has room at the 15, at the 10, cuts it back to the 5, dives, goal line, touchdown!
I think the whole idea of bleeding green, it's a very, very big lifetime commitment for a lot of the fans. That emotion drives you forward. This whole culture is developed with the fans. It's been incredible. They know the history. They bleed green. So they're eternally optimistic.
At the end of the day, they know that that team has done everything it possibly do to be successful.
The New York Jets, a franchise with a proud past and a promising future.
The New York Jets are the world champions in a stunning upset.
If you're not a believer, you better start believing the Jets are back.
What a great opportunity and what a great privilege to be involved with the New York Jets.